Before we get started, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so that you don't miss any of the content that is released by GoCollect. And if you're interested, head over to Regie Collects here on YouTube. Regie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector and the host of the GoCollect speculation video, and I want to welcome you to another one of our episodes. In this episode, I am going to spend some time talking about 6 blog posts that have been posted to the GoCollect website. And I will tell you that all 6 of the blog posts that I'll be talking about are actually linked down in the description, so check those out. But you may also want to head over to the GoCollect website itself because there's a ton of other information there that may be of interest to you. Now, with that said, I want to spend some time talking about Sony and a movie that they may be making about Solo. And I'm not talking about Han Solo.
Half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
Who's scruffy looking?
I'm talking about the teleporting mercenary known as Solo, who had his cameo appearance in Web of Spider-Man issue number 19. There are some rumors that Sony may actually make a Solo movie about this character, and so you may want to check out his cameo appearance, which again is Web of Spider-Man issue number 19. You can actually pick up a 9.8 of this book for about $130, which isn't bad, especially if they actually do something with this character. I will tell you that you may also want to check out his first full appearance, which is Amazing Spider-Man issue number 323. So who knows what's going to happen with Sony. They are, I believe, investing pretty heavily in the Spider-Verse. There's a lot of noise around what they may be doing with all of the different characters that they have access to, and sooner or later, some magic will be made. The link to this blog post down in the description. So when I mention the phrase DMZ, what readily comes to mind? If you're in the military or just like military related things, you're probably thinking demilitarized zone, and you are actually correct. But within the context of this video and comics as a whole, what we are essentially talking about is DMZ, which is a title that was released by DC and Vertigo back in the day. Now, what's really cool about this is that they are about to release a movie based upon DMZ. And this is a movie that stars Rosario Dawson and Benjamin Bratt that actually finished production before the shelter in place. So, if you will, this one is in the can, and they may be making some edits and some post-production cuts and tweaks and stuff like that. But this one is in the can and may actually come to the small screen relatively soon. And I think that's actually a fantastic thing. And if you really think about it, HBO Max is betting heavily on DC, as evidenced by the various things that we've been hearing over the last few weeks and months around what they're actually doing. So if this is one that you think could have some potential, you may want to check out the blog post. You may want to give some thought to whether you actually want to pick this book up, and I believe that you can pick it up for just about $100 at a 9.8, which is not bad. And Rosario Dawson is pretty talented, so maybe the book will actually have some magic associated with it when this thing actually hits the screen. The blog post, the link to it, down in the description. Head over, check it out, and then decide for yourself if this is something that you want to pick up. This next blog post is a little intriguing. And it's intriguing because that's essentially the title of the blog post. But the blogger actually takes some time to examine 7 intriguing cover variants that you may want to check out. And in the blogger's opinion, these variants are some underappreciated and in some cases undervalued variants that might have some potential down the road. So if you're into variants and you're into speculation, which is kind of the point of this video, You may want to check out this blog post because, as I mentioned, the blogger highlights 7 pretty interesting variants. And I will tell you, some of these covers are pretty awesome. I'm only going to talk about a couple, so you definitely want to check out this blog post for yourself so that you can see the full list. The first book that I want to talk about is Black Widow issue number 1. And this is actually a book that I recently found in my own collection. The blogger points out that with this particular book, there were around 69,000 copies of this particular issue run. And they speculate that there were more of the A cover printed than the B cover. And they kind of cite the census data with both CGC and also CBCS to kind of justify what they're recommending. I will tell you that both of these covers are pretty darn nice. So the B cover could be a good way to go, but you might also want to pick up that A cover as well because it is a really nice one. The next book that I want to talk about that was identified by the blogger is Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider issue number 1. And this is the Battle Lines variant. This is a gorgeous cover. Hands down, it is a gorgeous cover. And as the blogger points out, he's like, why are these Battle Line books so inexpensive? This particular book from Spider-Gwen is actually selling for about $50, which isn't bad, especially for a character that is pretty hot and for a cover that is pretty awesome and a cover that is done by a really talented artist. So if you're into Spider-Gwen, you're into some long-term speculation, this is one that you might want to look at. The very last book that I'm going to talk about is Moon Knight issue number 3, specifically the 1 in 25 Ryan Stegman variant. The blogger actually points out that this is not an easy book to find. The overall print run was about 40,000, and because this is a 1 in 25 variant, that means that there are not a whole lot of copies out there to be had. But if you are lucky enough to actually spot this book, I would recommend that you pick it up because it's a gorgeous cover, the artist is super talented, and the character is incredibly hot. And as soon as the Disney streaming service does something with this particular character, you may see prices actually go up. Again, I only touched on 3 books of the 7 that were identified by the blogger. You want to check this out because these other books are also really solid. As a comic book collector, I am a huge fan of the hunt. I love going hunting. I don't like digging in long boxes all day and all night, I will tell you that, but I do love going to different comic shops and digging in bins because there is an excitement there where you don't know what you're going to find. You may come up empty-handed or you may find some fantastic books in a long box that has been forgotten by the owner of the shop and maybe passed over by other people. This next blog post is really an exploration of that excitement. And the blogger really puts together, I think, a celebratory type of blog post in which they talk about the thrill of the hunt. And he actually highlights some books that he recently found while on the hunt in this COVID period. And so if you are a hunter, if you're missing the hunt, if you're ready to get back out there and hunt for some comics, if you want to be inspired as to what you might be able to actually find in the wild, this is a blog post that you want to check out. Back in 1997, Wizard Magazine actually asked the very talented Alex Ross to envision a dystopian future and to actually create a 3-part series that depicted this dystopian future. And Alex Ross, in his now traditional fashion, crushed it. He absolutely crushed it. Even back in 1997, this guy's artwork was incredible. And yes, it took some time in many respects for him to become a widely known artist, But the guy was talented from day one, and his artwork is really, really fantastic. But what we are talking about here that Wizard actually asked him to create was a series, or technically 3 series, that I don't know if a lot of people have really heard about. But we are specifically talking about Earth X, Universe X, and Paradise X. This is a very, very interesting series of books that Alex Ross worked on. And I will tell you that I actually have all 3 of these series in my collection. I've only read Earth X. I have not read Universe or Paradise. But this blog post almost makes me want to go read them now, just because I am remembering just how good Earth X actually was. And it's very different. This dystopian future that has been created is very, very different. It is not the shiny and pretty Marvel universe, if you will, that we've come to expect. It is very different from that. And so this might not be a speculation book, but it is a book or a group of books, if you will, that are pretty interesting to read. And if you're interested in Alex Ross, if you're interested in anything that I've kind of talked about, you definitely want to check out the blog post, and then I would encourage you to check out these books as well. I do believe that they are available as collected works, and they certainly are available digitally. So you might want to check them out, if nothing else but to see some fantastic artwork from the very talented Alex Ross. The link to this blog post is down in the description. At some point in the near future, there could actually be 3 different Batmen in the DC universe at the same time. And I'm talking about in the movies. There could be 3 different Batmen based upon everything that is actually happening out there. And people are asking the question, which of these Bat persons will come out on top? And because of some recent news that has come out, people are speculating that it could be the Rob Pattinson Batman that actually emerges as the winner. And part of the reason for that is that Matt Reeves, who is the director of the Batman, is also going to have a new show on HBO Max. And this new show is based upon the Gotham City Police Department. And so the blogger in this blog post essentially asks a couple of questions. And the questions revolve around, should we buy up a couple of books that are associated with the Gotham City Police Department? And they specifically cite 2 books. The first is GCPD issue number 1, and the second is Gordon of Gotham issue number 1. And both of these books are relatively inexpensive books, and the blogger really says that there's some low risk here and some moderate returns that could potentially be realized. And so if you believe that something could come out of this, you may want to check out these books and this blog post and decide for yourself. So with that, we have reached the end of another episode. And I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I want to thank all of you for the comments that you've been leaving as well. Those have been extremely helpful to GoCollect and also to myself to figure out what you guys are interested in hearing about. So I certainly want to encourage you to continue doing that. But I also want to encourage you to tune in next week when we get to do this all over again.